Hello, hello. Can you hear me now? Okay, that might be better. Looks like the audio is now working. Sorry, as I said, had some problems with having to update the software, so wasn't quite sure what to set up. Well, ignore everything I just said, which you didn't hear anyways, and we'll start over again from the top. Okay. So the goal of these office hours is to kind of explain, kind of answer any questions you might have about the class itself, right? But also to provide you with updates for the class that are going on, and so it should be able to give it should be able to give you some help as we're going through the class and any clarifications you might have for the class as well. Um, I always got a little bit of hiccups with this at the beginning of the class, but hopefully from here on out it'll go pretty smoothly. Um, now, the other goal is that I always go over what is going on that week so that you have some discussion of that. So we do have one question that's come in already from Michelle. Maybe no office, or no, sorry, that was not the question. When you did your study on Dig, how did you mitigate the effects of algorithm presenting similar info to people based on what they had already selected? Oh, great question. And so for those of you who don't know, to put a little background on this, in a couple of the videos, you'll see some research where we did some looks into different types of social media. And this is something that I always examine quite a bit. And I'm fundamentally interested in understanding diffusion of information on social media and how people interact with each other. And so I've done studies on Twitter and Dig, done a little bit of work on Facebook, done stuff with Reddit and Stack Overflow and other social media platforms, Pinterest, Instagram, among others, right? So this is a great question. On Dig, right, when you subscribe, a lot of algorithms out there, we should say, and this is nowadays the case, the way they work is they try and guess what content you want to see, right, and then show that content to you. And so obviously, if we were showing, and one of the findings we have in Dig is that people who start off similar to each other become more similar to each other over time, and people who start off different from each other become more different from each other over time, right? Even if they're friends, right? So there's a couple of answers, and so Michelle's asking the question: if the algorithm is showing you stuff that you think you're interested in, how do you mitigate that effect, right? And there's two answers to that, Michelle. The first is that actually at the time we did the study, if I remember correctly, Dig essentially used a just first in, first out queue, kind of like the old Twitter feed, where there was no algorithm really. It was just whatever things you had subscribed to as interests is what it showed you, right, in that order. So there wasn't really a strong algorithm selecting what content you were being able to show, right? And to the extent to which there was an algorithm, we weren't interested not in taking it into account, but rather modeling its effect, right? So the fact that you became friends with these people meant that you saw their content regardless, and if there was any kind of bias, and I'd have to look back at my notes to see if there was in the Dig algorithm. I don't believe there was. I believe it was purely a first in first out queue, but again, that was the old Dig platform before the new version has come about. That was in fact something we were interested in, right? Like, do these algorithms create filter bubbles, right? Do they make people become more isolated from each other and less diverse? So in some ways, that was kind of one of the topics that we were interested in trying to understand. And we were amazed at how powerful the effects seemed to be, right? Now, if anything, those algorithms have become stronger, right, since the time of that study. So our argument would be that if anything, those algorithms are making filter bubbles more intense. In other words, what I mean by a filter bubble is I mean that the algorithm itself is only showing you content that it thinks you're going to like, and that content is going to be very similar to the content that your friends think they like. So to that extent, it's not going to be it's going to create these isolated pockets of community, right? That kind of break apart each other. It's one of the negative side effects of social media, and something that a lot of smart people have spent some time thinking about how to break down. So that was one question that came in on the live chat. Now another question, and hopefully that answers your question, Michelle. Another question that came in over email was, with regards to the course survey, do you need to read the materials ahead of time? And the answer is no, you don't, right? In fact, I would encourage you not to. I kind of want you to do the course survey blind so you have a chance to level set and see what's going on with the course, right? And that'll kind of give me an idea what the background knowledge is for the most of the people in the class so that we can set the content in the course appropriately. Um, now, so those are the two only questions. I don't plan to keep this stream up for very long, primarily because of the fact that it's the beginning of the semester and there's not a lot going on. But if anyone else has questions, feel free to chime in. I do want to, one thing I also want to use this time for every week is to go over what's happening this week in the course and what you should be working on. Right? And there are 7 things. If you go to the top block of the Moodle, right, that's where I always put up what you should be working on that week, right? And this week I've listed a couple of 7 things, right? So first of all is read over the syllabus, make sure you're up to date on what's going on with the syllabus, right? Second is to watch the first 10 videos, and I'll have the next set of videos up shortly. I plan to work on those and finish them up in the near future. The third thing is complete the course survey, and as I said, you can do that before you watch the videos, right? You don't have to watch the videos or read any of the content beforehand. I just kind of want to get an idea of what's going on. The fourth thing is to read the material on augmented reality that's up on Moodle and participate in the discussion on Top Hat on there. And so the way I do participation, and this is explained in one of the videos, but I'll mention it briefly here again, is that basically you're expected to participate in about 70% of the discussions on Top Hat, right? And if you participate in 70% of those discussions, you get a full weighting on Top Hat. And I don't really check to make sure. I'm not grading you for accuracy or anything like that. We just want to make sure that you've contributed to the materials, right? And so that's the important aspect of it. And so as long as you're contributing to the discussion, you'll get full credit on Top Hat, okay? So, and that being said, there's one other discussion up on Top Hat Array, which is the class introduction discussion, right? So go ahead and take a look at that, introduce yourself to the rest of the class. And that would actually be a good place to actually start thinking about forming teams as well. You're going to need to form a team for the group project, which makes up over 50% of your grade in the near future, right? And I'm going to ask you to submit those teams next week. So please go ahead and start thinking about that, start organizing that. Also think about a company organization you might want to work with. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in next Monday's office hour, since that's when we'll be switching over, when you'll have to submit them. Finally, if you want, read over the appendix, which covers the textbook covers the history of the internet, and there's a discussion of kind of some of the basic concepts in there. Right. Okay, so that's all I plan to cover today. I'll leave the stream up for a few seconds longer as I kind of talk through what's going on in case somebody else has a last-minute question. By the way, small note, it's always useful to type in your questions early on, even if they're not directly relevant to what I'm talking about, right? The way this works, it's not like you're interrupting the class. I can read your question and decide when to respond to it. So there's a little bit of delay between when I say things and when you see them. And so if you wait till the last second to type in your question, I may not actually see it before I close down the stream. Anyways, that's it for now. I will post this video shortly up to the feed, so it'll be available for everyone up there. And hopefully everyone's getting a good start to the semester. And if